So welcome everybody to our venues and communications meeting for February. First point is 71721, declarations of indisclosable pecuniary interest. None, thank you. So 71821, apologies for absence.
Councillors Crawford and Jeremy.
Thank you. So we then have the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of January, which was received by full council on 25th of January. I'll be happy for those to be signed as a true record, please. Agreed? Thank you. So straight into the marketing report, 7/20/21.
Right, hello. It feels like it's been a while since I've been here, but just an update on marketing in regards to the Rotunda. As you've all hopefully seen, it's been full, like completely full, since the start of the year. I've actually got to a point where I have more posters than I do have spots on the Rotunda, which is a nice little achievement. It's been going well, so it does mean that I'm having to be picky about the posters that we've got going in there, but that's really a minor issue. And the same. Just to make a note, that I obviously have no way of knowing how productive or successful it is having posters in the Rotunda, but at the very least, while I'm putting stuff in there, always get people asking questions. So I think in that regard, it's proven quite fruitful. I made a point in the last report, which obviously I wasn't here for, but we have a lot of external third-party hires, which on that note, I am just going to put these here. We have tons of flyers for events, and I would like councillors to take them away with you, if you don't mind. We have a huge calendar of events from third-party hires, which we haven't had to this extent in the past, since I've been here anyway. However, a lot of them are either quite late giving us their marketing material, giving it within the last month or so, which really isn't enough time to get advertising. So still having to do a little bit of legwork there, but I'm reckoning what will probably be good in the long term is if we basically say, if you want us to advertise your event properly, we need this stuff within X amount of time. Pretty easy stuff that I can just send to every hirer. As I mentioned previously as well, the online consultation for the marketplace has seen a ton of use. Despite the fact that it's been a few weeks, we're still getting regular feedback coming, and it's currently sat around 300 entries just from the online form. So I think the electronic form format is working out really well. As a little addition to that, obviously we're still doing offline reports where councillors are on the marketplace. I'd like to perhaps look into that and say maybe it would be ideal, rather than having paper forms, because the more paperless we go, the better. We can rather equip councillors with their tablets and have it so people fill out the form on the tablet there and then, and that way what that does is all the data gets collated together. We don't have to sit there manually counting what people have picked what options. We can automatically go which age ranges have picked which options the most. We can see the full data. You don't have to do any sort of manual counting, and it generally would save a lot of time in the long run, I think. Other than that, just to mention again with one of the flyers that I've bought in here, we've been working with a company called Chuckle, which is a talent agency and event organisers that are based in East Anglia. But they have a lot of big names. So of course we've got like a Paul Sinner on there, he's on the TV basically every day. So that's quite important. But they're providing us with, they've booked 10 shows in the Carnegie for this year alone, and they're looking to do more in the future. They came in for a meeting yesterday, and they're all very impressed with the facilities we've got and what we can provide them. So I'm hoping that that'll be a golden opportunity to really push the Carnegie and the Guild, and generally all of the town events a bit further. Because as you said, they saw the venue and they thought this is one of the best ones we've got in the area, so that would be great. Regarding some other marketing stuff, so with the newsletter and the website, as mentioned, we've had tons of events book in. This is all positive news, because we actually reached a point where I didn't even notice it until a little bit later, but we'd actually run out of space on the website. The default on the website had a maximum of 15 entries on it, and we have 22 currently. So I had to go and change that, but that's not a problem. But it just goes to show how much we've got coming up. The monthly newsletter, which I've been sending out, has all of the upcoming events. However, if I was to include all 22 of those, it's going to be too long and no one will read it. So I'm having to be, again, like the Rotunda, be a little bit picky about what I've got on there, but at the very least I can always put a link saying, see the full calendar of events going here. One little bit of less good news is obviously the podcasts have been put on hold for the time being. It's because we're spread just a little bit thin with trying to get everything sorted, but it's all good. But I do think that when I come back round to that, there'll be a way of setting it up so we can do it not only as a video broadcast but as a purely audio podcast. The long form nature of what we were making, so they were like half an hour to 40-50 minutes long. That sort of content is much more suited to a audio only podcast for the most part. So I do believe that it would be possible to make it so there's both. Would be quite easy to make it interchangeable, and it would be something I'd want to look at when I come back to it. Everything else is just a monthly observation, which just point out that we're just seeing a regular growth. You notice that some of it looks a little bit different. Facebook is going through a fair few changes at the moment. The quality of those changes remains to be seen, but it does mean that I'm not able to get the exact same data I used to. So obviously the council overview is a little different from everything else. But you hopefully all looked over that. But if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, I've got a few. Chris, got?
Yeah, I've just got one regarding removing the paper consultation. When we was on the market this week, there was a substantial number of residents, elderly, who much preferred the paper consultation. And they get scared of electronics and technology, and they really do. And I've said to them, so-and-so, why don't you do it? No, we want to fill in the paper.
Okay, so what I mean by, I don't mean to stop the in-person consultations, because you were obviously on the market for both of them, I think.
Yeah.
You were there for both things, so you obviously had the most engagement in that regard. I do agree that it's worthwhile having it so they can come out and talk to someone and then do it then and there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would be a better solution in the long run is rather than having the paper copies there. So if they can still come along, still talk to a counsellor, still fill it out and have someone there who can help them, but rather than it just being a paper form, which we then have to manually look through everything, is that you can then just have it on a tablet and then it's just sat there. Because if it's like a long form, then I understand, but this one was literally name, age, where do you live, what option do you pick?
Yeah, this is true. The demographic that lots of the elderly, they have a fear of technology. They don't like the idea that their information is going to some tablet, an electronic thing. Right? We know it does regarding the thing, but I think I wouldn't like to see paper consultation removed. I'm really sorry. I mean,
That's fair enough.
it did attract a certain number of different demo. I'll come down because I can't do it online. Well, I could do it on the tablet. No, I want to fill in the paper.
David,
So I agree, and we've had numerous emails about why do we have to have a Google account to fill in the online form. I don't want a Google account, which means I can't do it online. So that means I can't get involved in the consultation. So we've had several issues with me having to email them the form so they can email it back and things like that. What we also try to do is not to put too much detail on the form. They literally only have to put a name. They don't have to put address or anything like that or any other details. They have to put an age bracket, but that's not too bad. So I think what Tom's saying is, in front of them, you could go, which option do you want?
Yeah.
1, 2 or 3. What is your name? Donald Duck, da-da-da-da. And then they can physically see you enter or submit their views or their decision. So it just allows us to, because some of the online stuff, we can just look at it and see what the percentages are, and it's so much easier. But having said that, I think there was real value, Chris, and I'm sure you'll agree, for you, Terry and Mike for a short period on Saturday, because some of the other issues with, they won't read the form properly. We gave a really I thought, were a good preamble of what we were trying to do, and people are saying this is a done deal, you know, it doesn't explain it. And you have an opportunity, and you did, I heard you speak to several, you had an opportunity to try and explain those options and widen what we were trying to do. So I think it's really important to carry that out, but it's just making it easier to record the information. That's what it's about.
But admittedly, I've probably overstepped a little bit there because that's not realistically what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the market.
Right. Yeah, so I think, like you, Chris, there is people out there. Obviously, as time goes by, people will be more attuned to doing things online. We all had to do things more and more online. So I think keeping the option of the manual side there. It is a consultation which we haven't done for a long while, or in the extent that we have. So, I would say, Tom, we're not going to be forcing you to do this every week or every 6 months, something like that. So I think a one-off, as this is right to keep that option there, and allow people to use the way that they feel comfortable to do, and making sure everybody is able to access it. So I think we take on board the point of trying to collate the data easily, but at the same time keeping that option open. I've got a couple of points on earlier matters. One is you talked about the rotunda. Do you? I don't know. I don't want anybody to be accusing us of cherry picking and say, "Oh, you only put him up there because he was your mate," or something like that. Is it on a date basis that you tend to put those? Because obviously it's a nice problem to have.
By and large, yes. If you look at the rotunda now, we've got events that are coming up in like October, November, which are obviously not going to be up there because it's so far ahead of time. Date is the main thing. Obviously, if we've got something that we're looking at, I think that's going to be a big event, and that will go up earlier. But it's not subjective. I'm not, obviously, as you say, it's not. You don't want people to think we're being biased. But it is obviously you're still looking at. You want to make sure that the events which you think has a good chance of being a big seller is going to go up there first.
So you talk about the newsletter. What is your reach of that newsletter? How many people get that now?
The newsletter at the moment it is slowly growing. Admittedly, I didn't include the numbers on this one because I'd only just sent it out after writing the report because it's quite an early meeting this month. But typically, what we're getting is the email. We'll try that again. The amount of emails we have on the list is just under 600 at the moment.
So it's great to hear that we've got all these shows and that coming up there, but we need the bums on seats to make it work. Otherwise, they just won't book again, will they?
Of course.
And so if we are promoting the venue, it's that slow build and growing it. So how do we get more people to sign up to the newsletter? We can have the Cloverfield residents last week before last, and you say we've got lots of things we want to go. Well, how do I know about it? Is it about Thetford? Is it? And you think, well, we do send a newsletter out to everybody. It is there if you want to subscribe to it. I just think it's something we ought to push a little bit more, either through Facebook or something like that, to say, come on, sign up and hear about all this good stuff that we've got going on.
So firstly, in terms of advertising in About Thetford or any other magazine, we can only contemplate that with our own events because there's obviously a cost to that and we have to factor that in. We can't, really, if it's a third party that's just hiring our venue, it's not cost effective. We would lose all our money by advertising in those periodicals because of the cost, and we can't do that. So we do share those information with the third party hirers. Carlton Entertainments is another one that's bringing several bands to the venue over the next year. Chuckle, as Tom has already said. And we sit down with them and they say, well, how do you advertise your events? What areas can we advertise? Chuckle were in the town the other day flying and making lots of good contacts. And we talk about Thetford, we talk about other avenues that they can go and speak to. One of the other things, and this is certainly no detriment to Tom, Tom's done a great job, but we are one person down in the VEM team with Joe leaving to new pastures, etc. So we are looking at a slight restructure of the team, and one of the areas that we might take some of the responsibility away from Tom is marketing, and I am talking to an outside company that may well come in and help us with marketing. simply because you're right, Stuart. They're the quality of acts that we're attracting now to the Carnegie. We need to be able to develop an audience that comes from outside this town. We need to go out there to the neighbouring towns and villages, etc., to try and allow them to understand that we offer these kind of events and they can come into the Carnegie. So again, like I say, no disrespect to the team or Tom, but we need probably, you know, another professional body to help us. So the main job for our team is to supply the information to this particular company, and they will take over the marketing campaigns to try and raise those audience attendances. So I'll bring it back to committee as we develop that strategy in the future.
Yeah. And just add a little bit onto the end of that as well. Obviously, as you say, you know, you want to make sure it gets out in the paper press. As we do have a press that to every third party we send saying these are the people to advertise with.
These are the contacts.
These are the contacts. That's the one. Yeah, these are the contacts to let you know. Because so, for example, again, Trevor were in yesterday having a meeting with me, and they said they were going to go meet all of these contacts and say we need to.
But I still think there's scope in increasing our database of people who receive your newsletter. Carla.
Thanks, Chair. Would it be more cost effective to hire another person to replace Joe into a person that focuses solely on destroying qualifying in marketing, that has sort of a track record, or to hire outside help with by subcontracting a marketing company? How does that translate in financially and value for money?
Well, in terms of trying to replace Joe, we've been really productive in the last few months, attracting a bank of what we believe is really good quality sessional workers. So we are scheduling those sessional workers in key areas of facilitating those events. So they're not on a contract, a 37-hour contract where they're just sitting around waiting for things to happen. We will bring them in specifically to deliver certain events or support certain events, which allows us to be a little bit more flexible, and the same kind of strategy with an outside marketeer. So again, let's get them to pinpoint certain objectives to build audiences, etc., rather than try and, you know, flog the staff to a point where we're giving them so many different responsibilities. I mean, Tom's responsibilities are over a myriad of different things. I mean, again, he has to come down to committee meetings to do this kind of stuff, which takes him away from the front line at the venues, which his title is, venues officer. So that's what his key priorities are for me. So I think what we're trying to look at in the future is working well, both on sessional workers and also hopefully if we can enter into a contract with an outside marketeer, it will be specific and strategic in areas of developing audiences. But it's early days with the meetings, so once we've got something more tangible, I will bring it back. So next month, hopefully, I can bring something back, and then you guys can flesh that out and decide whether we go down that route.
Yeah, would it be prohibitively expensive and time-consuming to do like a leaflet like the Apex does in Bury St Edmunds?
Well, I think we were looking to do a quarterly.
I mean, it goes when I was out on Saturday, I was up the Innovation Centre and the Apex magazine was there, and I opened it up and I found 2 concerts that I wanted to go to for next month. Like, could we not do something and put it into Leaping Hair, get it delivered there, Thetford, put it out in the villages?
Well, I think we were looking to do a quarterly flyer of events coming up. But anyway, so
do you want me to, or you got it all?
Well, the reason we've never done that, Chris, is because sorry, that's not right. The reason we didn't do that in the past, Chris, is because literally we've never had as many events that we've delivered. We've always relied on our venues being privately hired for weddings and birthday parties and things like that. But if you look at the diary for the forthcoming year, there is a real good mix of both. I mean, we always want to be a community venue that gives people the opportunity to celebrate their key events at the Carnegie. But in fact, the conversation Tom and I had recently is we've got too many bands now. We want a variety to deliver to the. So we've got some good ones, and they're over every couple of months. But we want other kind of events and activities as well. So this is the first time that we could probably entertain that idea. Now, there is a cost to that, and it's a substantial cost. Although we are looking at various different flyers with a local provider that can do that. And also, because we are looking at our whole marketing budget with reducing costs for our website, we're getting a new website, which means our monthly outgoings in facilitating that website has been reduced. So it gives us more money to plough into things like, if we agree, a physical magazine, a quarterly magazine like the Apex and the Cornwall at this, etc. But again, we need a distribution mechanism to get that out to the people. So again, that's time consuming and also possibly costly. But that's something we can definitely look at, simply because, as Tom said, we've got sufficient events to warrant the expense, whereas before we didn't.
Chris,
Well, it's only a quick point. I saw a really good poster that you'd produced, which had small posters, about 12 of the small posters.
Yeah, the bi-monthly post,
And that was very eye-catching because, it showed. Oh,
So this
behind you, look.
is a slide for
Yeah.
the next agenda item, but I'll whip to it now. If you look at the one,
you've cut the top and the bottom off. But
well, I just put it into the PowerPoint presentation, and it's just done that. But it gives you a flavour of what we've got coming up over the next couple of months. And then obviously some of our, this is a chuckle, are putting on the comedy clubs. And again, they're providing marketing paraphernalia like the pop-ups that we can put into our venues, so we can attract people to what's up and coming. And like Tom said, there's some really good comedians that are well known on the TV. So you've got Hal Brittenden, Paul Singh, people like that who you'll see on various different comedy shows and current affairs shows. So we've got some good people coming up, but we need to get it out there. So Tom produces this every couple of months.
yeah, so it's a flyer I do every 2 months. It goes out and you'll see there's a big A0 poster, which I'm going to be picking up that version later on today from the printers, and it goes up on the side of the venue. But that would be the sort of thing that would end up being put together as a flyer of sorts if we were to go down that route, which sounds like we probably will.
Because I still think there's such a scope to have little dispensers in the hotels and the shops so that we, it's not too onerous if we're just in town to just top them up every quarter.
Yeah, and we did share by a suite of the little sort of leaflet dispensers that we would not just give leaflets like that. We'd go in there and say, look, we've given you something to put them in, so you can put them on your counter or whatever. But again, good old COVID put paid to that. We were making some real inroads into that. We're putting them into the nail bars and the hairdressers and those kind of people. Places where people will want to sit and wait for their appointment and read things, etc. And then it hit. So we need to revisit that. We need to go back out and renew our contacts. So we'll get there.
So just a couple more, Tom. On the side of the Carnegie, I just noticed the poster had slipped there. Is that on? Is it?
Yeah.
Because I think that is working as a thing. Just
that's
subtract this a little bit from it. But no, it's really positive that we've got so much on. I just hope that we can draw people in to make it work, because for years we've really strove to make the Carnegie a destination for people to come to for events. And as David said, we're reliant upon the Thetford crowd, and we do need to draw them from further afield. And how we do that is not an easy answer. So thanks for all the efforts in this. If
I can just add one tiny little thing on the end of that as well, just to mention, obviously, as I said about the marketing material from certain homes, who obviously I won't mention names, not always being punctual or not always being up to scratch. So we have some like up here in the post and they've got marks. You can't use them as display items. But I think now that we almost the standard has been set where we've got all these flyers come through. We had a bunch of posters come through. We've got the big standing banners coming through, all for the comedy club. I think when it becomes more obvious that that's the standard we're looking for, I'm hoping other high resort potential events will follow suit in that front, and that should hopefully make it so our presentation is just way better, because at the moment I'm kind of having to manually tweak a lot of things that come through to us to make it work. But in the long run I think it'll be good now that the standard's been met and set.
So just following up on your point about the podcasts and things like that, which I think as a town council we ought to be promoting not just ourselves but also the town and something happening in the town. So we've got the new sweet shop opening on the marketplace, giving them a bit of publicity, and I understand we haven't got the capacity at the moment to do all this, but I think where we did the Black Horse and did a bit and it was really positive feedback from the townsfolk that you were out there trying to promote and making people aware of what the town has to offer, because but you've got to keep it live and you've got to keep changing the content to make things happen. So I hope that we can pick that up once we've got a bit more capacity, and whether a new events or new shops, what's happening down the other side, I don't know, but if that happens, then hopefully we can promote it, because as a town council we need to promote the town as well as relying upon the other people doing their own thing, because I think that way people feel that the town council is working for them, and so that's something I want to do.
Right.
But capacity is something I'm more familiar with.
Yeah, I must admit, I told Tom just to ease up on some of the podcasts at the moment, simply because there's so much going on. But one of the spin-offs of trying to put out this kind of content to an outside marketing company means that the influence that Tom can have is probably on those podcasts more. So he will have his duties with the venues and how to facilitate these events, but he can also probably look at the filmmaking of the videos and things. I mean, the new tenant to the sweet shop, I've seen them and they're doing great guns. There's been queues outside their shop. So again, as a tenant of the town council as well, we should be promoting them. But we've had other areas. Jez at the Thomas Paine has turned over the first sod to do his extension. We've got things seemingly happening down at the riverside. So there's some great tales to tell. So we need to get back out there and do that.
Sure, and on that same note, obviously as David mentioned, we're kind of busy with a lot of other stuff at the moment, so that's been eased up. But for the time being, if there's particular stories you guys have that you would want me to, please let me know. You've obviously got my email address. I do get to my emails pretty quickly, and I'll be more than happy to. If you just say, hey, there's something going on at this shop, go take a look and go do a little video piece on it. I'll be more than happy to go and do so.
So if somebody's got a flyer that they're doing something, they can send it to us and we'll promote it on Facebook. Is it, in general?
We have a page specifically for outside events or outside stuff like that.
So that's, I think, for us to let people know that we're happy to do.
It just needs to get to me.
Yeah. Okay. So the last point I had was you mentioned about capacity on the website not being enough there. Have you got enough now?
I fixed it. That was me. That was more me pointing out the amount of events that we've got now has exploded so much more compared to previously that I didn't even know we had a limit before.
Okay, so that
wasn't a problem.
Stuck in the,
it's not a problem in the slightest. It is just a observation.
Okay. Right. If there are no more questions, then we'll move on to the next point. Thank you, Tom. So venues and events 7121.
So we've covered a lot of stuff through the marketing, in so much as the variety of stuff that we've got going on at the venues. And as Tom's already said, he produces this bi-monthly poster that actually covers 3 months, but it updates the third month of each round. So we're doing it updating it, refreshing it every 2 months. So what I said earlier about we wanted to create the Carnegie and the Guildhall as a community venue. So in the past, we wouldn't have been able to put something like that together because you'd had probably the Panto in January, a couple of events in February, maybe the Mayor's Ball, etc. But there's lots of other events going on. So you might be thinking, well, that means the fall guy is the public who want to hire the venue to have weddings and birthday parties and things like that. What's really exciting at the moment is the impact of the Guildhall. So we not just only have another venue that can deliver some of those events, as you see on the flyer at the above, like Tales of the Assizes and the Guildhall Ghost Stories and things. We also have the Guildhall that can deliver wedding receptions and wakes and christenings and birthday parties. So we've got two good venues, so that's why we can achieve the volume of events and content that we can produce. This weekend was a classic example. We had the Tara Awards on Friday night, which was again very well attended and was a successful event for us again. We had a tribute band, the Searchers and the Hollies, which could have been better attended, but again, it went ahead and it was a reasonable event. But we also had a wedding reception in the Guildhall, and that was a second event only in the last couple of months that have realised the potential that we all thought the Guildhall could have. And it was a superb bar income for me. I mean, or for us, it was absolutely brilliant. But we also had lots of complimentary remarks about the quality of the venue. The wedding planner came in and dressed the room fantastically, so it really showcased it. There were a lot of American attendees who love heritage and were, enthralled by everything that the Guildhall offers. So we have now really got a venue that we can maximise the potential going forward. So I'm quite excited for the forthcoming financial year that we can produce these kind of events, not just in the Carnegie where we've invested a lot of money in recent years, but the Guildhall as well. So so there's some good stuff coming up. So I don't know whether there's any questions, but as you can see from the poster, there's lots of good stuff coming up in terms of venues and events.
No, it's, I think we've all known the potential of Guildhall, but having that access and the toilets refurbed just makes it so much easier to use and people there. So have you got any pictures of the wedding as it's dressed, and are we allowed to use them as a promotional thing?
So
I have spoke with there you go, you want to pass that around, I'm fine with that. I have spoke with them and they're happy for us to promote it, even though it's the outside like doing it.
So what we're trying to do is to create a portfolio of preferred suppliers, people that we use and are confident that we can recommend. They don't have to use them, but we often get questions about do you know any good caterers, any good DJs, any good things. So through our own events, we are confident that we can recommend these kind of suppliers. But also, with respect to those pictures, since the weekend, the team have sort of brainstormed ideas that we can probably dress rooms similar to that ourselves at a reasonable rate. And you'll hear in a forthcoming agenda item in this meeting how we might need to spend a small amount of money, I think, to achieve that. And again, it's another income potential revenue stream that we can exploit going forward. So, yeah.
We'll move on then to the financial update, 72221.
So the financial report was circulated for month end 31st of January, so 10 months in. There are a couple of critical areas that we can focus on, but before we do, are there any specific questions you'd like to raise? So I think income-wise, we're doing pretty well to the revised budget. This revised budget was set prior to April of 2021 for the full financial year. But of course, no sooner as we set foot into that new financial year, restrictions hit once again. And we didn't really generate much income until September of last year. So most of the income that we've generated has been over the last 5 months, not 10 months. So if you look at bar fees and hire and such like on the income slide that's up, we are doing reasonably well to what is a revised full year budget. So again, we should, as Alan has commented in the circulation that went around to the councillors, we should hit the income part of the financial budget for this year without any real problem. We're only a few thousand down, and as he said in one of his comments, the forward bookings for the rest of the year clearly meet that shortfall that you see in the income budget. The expenditure side.
So just before we move
Sorry,
on to
yeah.
expenditure,
Yeah.
just on the heading Guildhall Tea Room, I know, just to clarify, that would be the hire of the Guildhall, large court, and the income associated with it. That's purely tea room.
No, so that is purely tea room income, but what I will include in that, and in the new budgets for going forward, we have promised to recalculate these budgets or recategorise these budgets. So under bar fees, you will see subheadings for specifically for Carnegie, specifically for Guildhall. And similarly, room hire, you'll get it differentiated between Carnegie and Guildhall. With the tea room, the tea room operates between 10 and 2:30, Tuesday to Saturday. But clearly on Saturday, lot just gone, at 3 o'clock we had the wedding party move in, and they had a wedding from 5 o'clock through till just after 11 o'clock, 11:30. So the income generated in the tea room for events like that will go against this budget. So I would say probably out of that budget, I would say £2,500 of that is on a couple of bar events that happened in the tea room. So if you take £2,500, you're near as damn it as the revised budget. So in terms of our budget, the Guildhall Tea Room as an operational tea room is hitting the budget. Our forthcoming budget is way ahead of that, because we're hoping that we're going to go back into normal operating circumstances, and next year we'll be having to hit a lot more than that. But we didn't open the tea room until back end of September. So again, and then we had the layoff in at Christmas when we shut down. So again, I think I'm fairly pleased with the way it's being operated at the moment. Once we hit spring, whether we close the car park down or not, and the consultation finishes this Friday, we will have to actually do some tweaks in the car park, if it retains as a car park, to allow a seating area outside. Because I think going forward, to maximise the income potential of the Guildhall Tea Room, we do have to have an outside space, because that's an advertising in itself that we're open and ready for business. So I'm anticipating, we haven't seen the good times, if you like, the better weather, but once we hit spring and summer, with additional events that we will have at certain times, if not more often, depending on the results of the consultation, I think you'll see the income start to fly, because the indicators are there already.
Okay, so on that point then of outside seating for the Guildhall Tea Room,
Yeah.
have we got specific chairs and tables that are appropriate to be used rather than just plastic ones we've got? We did talk about having some aluminium ones or something like that, which would look quite nice out there.
So one of the agenda items in the agenda is project priorities, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about.
Move on to costs then.
So costs. So the two areas that we have stretched ourselves is repairs and maintenance, which are well over budget, but unfortunately coming out of COVID, we've had a lot of servicing, and they have flagged up some of the repairs that were needed to be made. So this is hopefully one-off costs that are going to not repeat itself for several years. So we have outstretched that or overspent that budget. And also the events expenses, and within that category we're going to try and differentiate that going forward for next year, but in that would be some of the equipment that we needed to facilitate the tea room, and also if we were to do weddings and things like that, which we're going to talk about, that would be the nominal code that we would set it against. So again, we've outstripped that, but we are still making reasonable net profits to budget. So again, even with those additional expenses, I think in the last 5 months, which is really the only time we've been operating at a reasonable capacity, we're doing fairly well, I think.
Any questions? Okay. So we'll move then on to the project priorities 72321. Any communications project priorities for 2022-23.
So what we need to look at going forward is whether there are any particular projects that we would require additional investment for next year coming out of reserves. So for those of you who are on finance, you'll probably understand it slightly better than others, but reserves over the last 2 years have been consolidated into generic categories rather than specific. So in the past we've had a Guildhall Complex reserve, that's no more. So most of the big spends that come to facilitate investment in the venues will come out of property repairs. So there are some specifics that if you do see a reserve list, you will see that some have already been ring-fenced. So there are some projects within amenities, for instance, that are now ring-fenced. And as committees, we need to be looking at what do we think that we might need to ring-fence for next year. So it's probably slightly too early for some of these, but one of the key things to consider is the marketplace. As I've said, we've got until Friday to complete the consultation. All the results will be collated and brought forward to full council at the end of the month. And it's up to full council to make the decisions based on that consultation of where we go from there. Whichever option we choose, even if it's retained as a car park, the option says it will be retained as a car park with a few additional restrictions. And those restrictions will come at a cost. So again, we need to look at the marketplace in terms of possibly having to spend some money on it. So again, we will hopefully, Chair, bring this up again at next month's meeting, so we'll have a better understanding of that area. But again, the investment in the outside space for tables, chairs, and we do, if it's a car park, we need to make safety barriers, if you like. But if it's not a car park, then we still need, from a promotional perspective, you want the nice planters with the promotional banners to differentiate that outdoor space. So I'm estimating the cost to do all of that for tables, chairs, movable planters and banners and the plants to go in the planters would come to a rough estimate of £5,000. So that's one area that we probably need to look at to pitch to ring fence some money. The other is venue internal improvements, and one area that has caused an issue over the years has been the crossover bridge. And for anybody that's ever walked from the Carnegie to the Guildhall, there is this bit in the middle that is like a freezer. And sometimes even with visitors it takes their breath away how cold it is. It's also damp in there, but if we are going to, as the fire inspector has told us, to replace the fire or the old fire door from the 60s in the Carnegie side, we're going to move the fire door from the Guildhall to that end of the crossover bridge and open it up. If we do that and don't insulate it and make it waterproof, it's going to affect the Guildhall. So what we have got is costs to waterproof, insulate it and skin out the crossover bridge to make it warmer and more appealing. Heritage and Town Events have already talked about if we do go through with that, then we can extend the heritage displays into that space because it becomes an extension of the Guildhall. But the costs for the crossover bridge is £2,500 to do that. We also been looking at, if you've ever been into the tea room, you'll see the main doors, the solid doors on the outside, and then the internal doors, which once the tea room's open, we can keep those as a bit of a draft excluder, if you like. We'd like to replicate that on the large court, and again, we've had costs to do that, which would be £900. The reason it's reasonably costly is because it has to be in keeping with the decor and heritage of the building. So they have to be proper panel doors. It's also 8-foot high doors, so they're not standard doors.
Sounds cheap.
So that's for purchase and installation. And then again, because we know the potential of the Guildhall in terms of wedding receptions and wakes, I mean, you know, publicly I don't mind saying that there was 80 people at the wedding, and the income was well over £1,000 just on the return on the bar. So when I tell you that if we invested in some of the tablecloths, the decor features, the lighting for the balcony, some back bar displays and freezer units to make that transfer from a tea room to a bar a lot more easier, again we'd probably require another £2,000 to do all of that. So the costs to look at the Guildhall internal improvements and the crossover bridge would amount to £5,400. So they're the two areas that I've got in my head that I can actually see there being a financial return on. So it's a good investment in my opinion that we should entertain. But have the councillors got anything else that they would like us to look at now so we can try and get some costs to bring back for next month? Because we need to make these, we need to settle on these so we can pitch for the reserve funds going into next year.
Chris?
Yeah, this is only a minor thing. I don't know if this, due to crossover, I'm not sure if this comes under us or amenities. The bench outside the Guildhall that was removed. Lots of people at the consultation said they'd like that bench back.
Well, yeah, the bench, so the bench can't go back because that's the area where we'd look to have the outside seating for the Guildhall tea room. Because the steps extend quite a way across, there's only one more area where a bench could go in, which is on the outside area of just before the gap between the shambles and the Guildhall. So that is the area that we'd be looking to outdoor seating. So, but there are lots more benches that are in and around the car park. Unfortunately, because it's a car park, they're benches behind parked cars at the moment. But who knows what the consultation might throw up. So I don't think it can go back to where they want it.
Well, that's a bit, because lots of the feedback was that that's one of the few places that the wind doesn't hit due to some strange...
Which leads into having it for the tea room there.
Yeah, because you're sheltered there.
You're sheltered from that.
I mean, the residents did ask if I could ask the question, so... You know,
Yeah, I think, you know, probably our drive ought to be to make the tea room work, and I wouldn't want to do something that stops us making the tea room work, if you understand. So, you know, I think I take the point because, you know, obviously people sit there and use it, but if we've got to be a bit more financially driven, we need to, you know, make the tea room work, and so that would be my preferred priority. I think, you know, commenting on those points, David, I think they are worthwhile investments into the thing. And if we can get a yield on them, that's great. And it's not an excessive amount of money, but if you can, and in tandem with promoting the venue, with the images that you're now starting to bring, we've got
I've only had one more question, if I may.
Yeah.
I had a look at the wedding thing on Saturday. I thought it was incredible. It really looked good when I was wondering about. Have we the staff to take that on?
In terms of decorating it,
etc.
We have, and it's something that the staff actually, Chris, have been prompting us for ages to try and do. I mean, you know some of the staff members that we have, and some of them are very clever and talented in that kind of area. They do a great job for us at Christmas in dressing rooms for Santa's workshop and all the rest of it. This would be a piece of cake, and especially when we've looked. In fact, one of our staff members was talking to the wedding planner. And we lent them some of the stretch ones for the buffet long tables. And she said, blimey, where do you get those from? Because I'd use them on the round tables instead of those cloths, which I have to spend hours on steaming it. Well, funny enough, that's what we would buy. And it's a damn sight cheaper and it's easy to clean and wash. So, so we've already looked into it. But yeah, I think we've got potential to easily do that. And they're very good at turning rooms around and things. So
that's okay, because we've heard various comments over the last 2 or 3 weeks about the shortage of staff that we can't answer.
Well, there is a shortage of full-time staff. I mean, the Nix Town team are one man down. As I said, we're one man down. But what we've done is we've addressed that shortfall in a different way. And in the past, where we've advertised for sessional staff, and with respect to the people that have approached us in the past, the calibre of people that are coming forward that we're now using is absolutely brilliant. There's one young lady that we've used for 2 bars in the Guildhall, and they have been absolutely manic. And she is just, I've watched her, and she's just relentless. She's a great worker, and hopefully we can develop those a team around those kind of venues. So that could be a Guildhall team, and this could be a Carnegie team. And I think we're getting there. So yes, eventually I'd like to think that we're so successful that we would replace Joe's job in the future. But at the moment, we're holding our own with some very good quality session people.
I mean, I'm fully behind the ideas. I think it's great to diversify in today's society, but as long as we don't overstretch our capabilities. Okay.
So leading on from that, in terms of a wedding venue, where are we in terms of licensing for the venue itself?
So the licensing, we are, there's a couple of health and safety issues that we needed to address. They are being addressed at this moment, and all we've been told is we just need to do that. The fire inspector will come out, and hopefully it's a tick box exercise that and we'll get it. I think we are confident because the application we put in, as I've said in the past, they've already billed us for the fee. So just give us the permission and we'll pay the bill.
Okay. So then, just leading on, I'll see you, Carl. I'll just mention my last bit, which is we're doing lovely stuff in the Guildhall, making it all nice and presentable. The outside now is starting to deteriorate. We need desperately the windows being painted and made good. The crack coming down the gable end by the shambles. I think there's an issue there. We probably just need to point it out in the short term, but looking at it structurally. But I know the towers is an issue. Well, we're looking at
the towers are covered by the Guildhall Heritage NHLF bid. There are so. As you would know, Stuart, because you were at the Heritage and Town Events meeting, we've committed some money to put together a Heritage Master Plan, and it's not just one of those documents that we'll pay for and they tell us what we already know. They're going to tell us and actually put it in the form of a draft bid to the NHLF to try and get some money to hopefully do the major emergency repairs on St Peter's Church, and hopefully be able to invest in some of the work we need on the exterior of the Guildhall and the marketplace, and also tie in with how we present and promote the heritage assets that we've got in the town. So, funny enough, there's a conference that's happening virtually in the Carnegie at the moment, and there is a representative from the NHLF in attendance. And he came and said hello and had a quick walk around the Guildhall because he's obviously our bid advisor or our grant advisor, and we shared with him the decision of that committee to invest in the Heritage Master Plan, and he said that's exactly how you should be going forward, and he could see the NHLF supporting that kind of bid in the future. So he's really, again, we should be able to, but I think there are some. These are my thoughts in terms of quick wins that we can probably get the money back, but some of those things you've mentioned, Stuart, probably need to be worked up, ready to submit next month as one of our other options. I think we need to clean the building, we need to point it up, we need to certainly look at the windows on the Cage Lane side of the Guildhall. We did a lot of work with the Royal British Legion in terms, and you can see the disparity between the two because of the work we've done on the windows and the pointing of that building. So we need to do it. But if that's what we need to try and do, I need to work with Nick to try and get some costs.
I think it'd be useful to have some costs for the window repairs, because I think you and I have spoken, Dave, in the past. If we don't get it soon, we're going to lose those windows and we're going to have a bigger cost on our hands. Those upper windows in the Guildhall facing Cage Lane. Yeah. I think you mentioned that they are in quite a woeful state.
Yeah.
Carl.
Just to make a quick comment, going back to making events on Guildhall, particular weddings and this sort of things. I mean, from the pictures, it looks great, the weddings there, I think it's a great setting for those. From transferring from any wedding planner or hiring that as or letting the people organize their own wedding rather than as an organization taking it on. I mean, you said you have the staff with the knowledge and the ability and the talent to do it, but what about taking on the setting up and the whole thing also means taking on the insurance and all those extra costs of organizing and running it ourselves, rather if you basically let somebody coming in, they bring their own liability insurance, they bring their own costs associated with that. How does that play out in profitability? How does that translate work and cost versus income? Does that, my question is, does that really justify taking all that extra work cost-wise for the amount of margin or profit you're going to make over by being us dealing with those?
I'm not sure we've made ourselves clear in terms of what we're planning to offer. We're not looking to become DJs, caterers, all that kind of stuff. It is very much the basic decor type.
Set up,
we set up anyway. We set up all the tables and chairs because what I don't, and we also put away. What I don't want is, especially at the end of the night, I don't want people who have had a few drinks to start stacking chairs and wheeling them into, because that's where accidents happen. So we always, and on Saturday when the wedding planner walked in, the tables and the chairs were set out. Basically what she did is she clothed them up, chair covered the chairs, put the sashes on, put the flowers and the lights in the windows and things like that. That's what we would probably look to do ourselves, and also charge for that facility, which we're hoping would be a little bit more competitive. What we're advocating in doing is, if someone asks us the question, do you know caterers? We would say, we work with caterers for our civic events. We can recommend those because we are confident, but we can't recommend other people simply because we're taking on some of the liability if things go wrong. But we can, it's their choice. If someone walks in and says, no, I've got people that are going to come and do it, it's a bit like the box office with events. We have a box office, and if people say, have you got a box office, will you sell our tickets? Yes, we will. If they choose to go somewhere else or sell them themselves, that's absolutely fine. But we think there's an opportunity there, knowing the cost that some of these couples pay, that we can be competitive but also generate an additional revenue stream for us.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if anybody else has got any further ideas, I think we send them to David over the next few weeks so that we can try and bring those forward for the next meeting. Okay, on to 72421, compliments and complaints.
So the first one, Councillor Mark Robinson was the organiser of the Taras, as he has done over the last several years, and we delivered the Taras at the Carnegie on Friday night, and Mark has sent a nice compliment in, praising the staff's support and help, and also one of the entertainment acts in the evening were the newly formed Guildhall Singers. And again, for people who have just come together for the last few weeks as part of those activities that we now deliver from the Guildhall, they went down a storm, and they brought good praise from everybody that was there, and certainly Mark. So Mark wanted me just to mention the fact that he was very pleased with the support he received from the Carnegie staff. He was very praising of Tom. Tom did front of house for Mark, and as usual, when you have these kind of events, there's always a few little tweaks and things that people want to sit next to certain people, etc., etc. And Tom was calm and assured personified, really, and he sorted out those one or two problems. And I must admit, I watched Mark during the evening, and he was a very stressed out person. So I think he was very pleased that Tom was there by his side when these little things reared their head. So Mark was really pleased with the event, and so were we. So on the complaint side of it, I've got no formal complaints that we've received, but just to go back to the market consultation, there's been some disquiet on social media in terms of how we've presented the three options. I think in some places, or some examples, they've not really read the preamble, because if you read it, they've pretty much answered their own criticisms. You know, we have had several people engaged with the consultation, and we've got a couple of more days to go. But yeah, people have made their feelings known. What the main complaint is that basically it was three options. Please tick one. There was no area where they could give their comments. Well, in 2019, we did a consultation which was pretty much exactly the same as this, as a prior to putting in the bid for the Guildhall, and we did ask for people's comments there. So we've been through that process. The number of people who have engaged in this consultation is probably about 20% more than that, but by and large, the comments that I have received through emails and things have said very much what those people said in the past. So there's nothing really new. So those people who are in favour have talked about how they would like to see the space greened up, areas where they can sit and just chat. Those people who want to retain it as a car park, several have said, I think it's valuable as a car park, but clearly there's some areas that we need to address. I mean, I have a photograph that I will present with the final report if that option is selected, because we've burnt off 2 parking bays because of the steps for a bit of a safety barrier, and it's 2 legitimate parking bays that were there, and we did view the other day that there were 3 cars parked in that space. How the one in the middle ever opened his doors to get in or out of the car, I do not know. So there is some mis-parking in there that we need to address, because someone's going to get seriously hurt. I've seen cars reverse into the space by the ramp, which is definitely never been a car parking space, but they tend to use that now. So we need to look at it, if that's the option. So yes, I fully understand, you know, we didn't do that, but I think there was a reason, because all you would have done is have so many mixed messages. We need a specific, do you want it as a car park, do you want it as a pedestrianised space, or do you want a mix of both? And I think there's been, you know, clear indication of what they want, and if people want to make some other references, they've been able to email in.
Chris?
Yeah, one of the major things that came out was the lack of knowledge of the residents about the parking authority.
Yeah.
The fact that Thetford Town Council is not a parking authority, so have no legal right to go out and enforce the parking. When I explained to people it was Breckland who enforced the parking in the other car parks, you know, that's why. But they have told their traffic warden not to go into public car parks. You know, so
well, funny enough, the traffic warden was about the other week, and I did say to her, because she popped in to use our toilets in the Guildhall, and I did say, it's a shame you can't really have the responsibility to sort this mess out, because this is quite dangerous. And she said, well, it's not just the fact that she's been told not to go into car parks. In the wider scheme of things, it's not designated as a car park. Mm-hmm. It's not an official car park. When Breckland did their own survey and report of how the car parks are used, they didn't include the marketplace because it's not a designated car park. So yeah, people don't understand,
but that's a point. If we choose to retain it as a car park, we do have to go down that route of how we do enforcement and the churn and all that type of thing. But that's not for today.
No.
But I did notice the bollard has been hit at one of those steps.
Yeah.
Some remedial work is needed there already.
Yeah.
Because it is maintained as a car park. But you know, we have to cross that bridge when we come to it. So community engagement then, 72521. The only thing I'd like to see is if we can circulate your list of events forthcoming and encourage people to sign up for your newsletters, because I think it's a fantastic list of stuff that we've got coming up, and we just really want to make that work. But anybody else got any other ideas? And obviously once the marketplace consultation decision has been done at the end of the month, that will come through on the channel anyway.
Yeah.
So 72621 committee officers update.
No, nothing to report. No.
Okay, well, thank you all very much for your attendance, and enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hmm.